Hey guys, what's going on? Today I'm bringing you a video reviewing the Loomis IMX Pro 883 BJR. Now, for those that don't know, the BJR stands for Bladed Jig Rod, and this thing is exactly that. It is specifically made for throwing chatterbaits, other bladed jigs, and it does it really well. It does that by having a very, very soft tip, so I'll show you that here. Look at that. The thing's a noodle, wet noodle. However, the rest of the rod, very strong, lots of backbone throughout this entire blank. It's rated as a fast action, and that's true, even though it has a very soft tip, because it doesn't load up until about the top 1/3 of the rod. And that really allows you to really winch fish when you do hook up, but the soft tip allows you to fight them really well and keep them super pinned. They're not going to go anywhere once you have them hooked up on this. One thing I will say about this rod, because the tip is so soft, I like to throw it with braid. Because you're going to be throwing chatterbaits around grass, I throw it around heavy grass, so I like to throw braid because braid cuts through the grass, and when it gets hung up, like you want to get a chatterbait hung up when you're throwing it around grass. That's kind of what sparks the reaction bite when it kind of comes out of grass. When it gets hung up and comes out, that's what kind of initiates the reaction strike. If you're throwing it with fluorocarbon that has more stretch, it's not going to come through grass as well. So I like to throw it with braid so I could really rip it through that grass. So let's start talking about this rod a little bit more detailed. So this is a 7.4 medium heavy fast action. So it's rated for 3/8 to 3/4 ounce, and I'd say that's pretty accurate. You're not going to want to throw anything heavier. If you're throwing super heavy chatterbaits in deep water, you're going to want to go with something a little heavier. Now, as for weight, when I weighed this rod, it came in at 4.8 ounces, which for a moving bait rod, especially chatterbaits, is pretty good. You could expect your chatterbait rod to weigh anywhere from 4.5 to about 5.5 ounces. Anything higher than 5.5 is heavy. That's kind of like the Dobbins 736 CB glass. Amazing chatterbait rod, but it is heavy. Anything lighter than 4.5 is super light. I don't have any rods on the top of my head that are under 4.5 ounces. I'm sure there are plenty out there, but that would be considered lightweight. So this kind of falls right in the middle, 4.8 ounces. It's on the lighter end, and it feels pretty light. It feels great in the hand. I had no issues with fatigue when throwing it or anything like that. As for balance, I have a Shimano Scorpion on here, which, come on, look how amazing that looks. If you get this rod, put a Scorpion on it. It's kind of made for it. I think right around there. Yeah, right there. So about 2 inches in front of this reel nut right here is where it balances. So definitely a little tip heavy, but I don't really mind that when throwing chatterbaits because you're working it with the rod tip down most of the time anyway, so you don't really notice it. So one thing that I did notice is I was having a hard time getting long distance casts, and I think that's because when you're usually throwing a chatterbait rod, which you want something a little more moderate, which this kind of makes up for being a fast, having that really soft tip. When you're throwing a moderate rod, the entire blank loads up on a cast, so you really get a good catapult, a really good launch. This, only the tip kind of loads up. You get a little load in the rest of the blank, but it's really just the tip doing most of the launching, and because it's so soft, I've found myself really having to rip casts out there to get any sort of distance. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Now, as for price, so the IMX Pro 883 comes in at about $345, $350, depending on where you buy it from. A little on the expensive side, especially for something that is kind of a one-trick pony. So I can think of a few other competitors that are amazing rods that you might want to try before going to this, and those are the Shimano Zodius and X Pride 7.2 medium heavy glass. Now the Zodius, I believe, is around $220 if I remember correctly. This is all off memory. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry. Around $220. The X Pride is around $280, and in that same price point, you also have the Dobbins Champion 735 and 736 CB glass, which are also incredible chatterbait rods. So I've heard. I have not used any of these rods, the Shimano or the Dobbins, but I've heard that they are excellent, that they have huge followings and are incredibly popular, and I would certainly want to give those a try, maybe before I stepped up to this. Now, if you are a huge fan of Loomis and you like their build quality, you like the look, you like the feel, warranty, you have a good rapport with the company, sure, go with this. You're not going to be disappointed. This is an awesome chatterbait rod. But if you're just looking for a dedicated setup and you want to upgrade from $100, $150 rod, maybe give the other ones a try first before you step up to this. So as for fit and finish, it's a Loomis, and it's a nice Loomis, so the cork is great. It's not sunny out, but when it is, you can see that the rod actually has some really nice sparkling glitter in it. So yeah, it's beautiful, especially when paired up with the Scorpion. It's a match made in heaven. So yeah, fit and finish is great. About what you'd expect from a Loomis, it's gonna be quality. I just really quick want to go over everything, the pros and the cons of this rod. Kind of a too long, didn't read just at the end of this video, so you could click on the timestamp and go right to it. So the pros of this rod. I love the fact that it is specifically designed for throwing chatterbaits. It has a super unique action that kind of excels at exactly what it's designed to do. The really stiff and stout backbone is perfect for getting those big fish turned around and heading your way, while the very soft and noodle tip that I will show you one more time, look at that, is perfect for keeping them pinned and working the chatterbait through grass. Another thing is the weight. So 4.8 ounces is kind of on the lighter end of the spectrum for chatterbait rods. Like I said earlier, you can kind of expect your chatterbait rod to weigh between 4.5 and 5.5 ounces. Anything above 5.5 is kind of heavy. Anything under 4.5 is going to be pretty light for a chatterbait rod. And lastly, the fit and finish. If you know anything about G Loomis, if you like G Loomis, you're going to know that the fit and finish is great. The cork is beautiful, the finish is beautiful, and it's very well put together. You're not gonna have any issues. And if you, by some rarity, do, G Loomis is gonna take care of you. Okay guys, so as for cons, the noodly tip doesn't really lend itself well to launching the chatterbait long distances, and that's because it doesn't really snap back to, you know, get a good launch. It's just like flinging a wet noodle. So I kind of had a hard time getting long distance casts with this rod. Another thing is the price. So this is coming in at about $350, give or take. So I feel like there's a lot of competition that's way cheaper that is a direct competitor for this rod. So that's like the Dobbins Champion 735 and 736 CB Glass. Those are excellent chatterbait rods. The Shimano Zodius and X Pride 7.2 medium heavy glass rods are also great chatterbait rods, and those run between $200 and $280. So you're gonna save between 70 to 150 bucks going with those over this. Not saying that you are going to like those over this. You might like this more. So that's kind of one of those things that you have to try for yourself. And I think that's kind of it for cons. You know, this is a great rod. G Loomis makes great stuff. There's not really too much bad I could say about it. I just didn't exactly, it didn't really blow me away. And I feel like if you're spending 350 bucks on a rod, it should blow you away. And it very well might, so you got to try it for yourself. Okay guys, I think that's going to wrap it up for the G Loomis IMX Pro A83 BJR. That's a mouthful. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate your time. If you liked the video, please like or subscribe. If you have any questions or concerns for me, leave them down in the comment section. I will do my best to answer them for you. Other than that, take care.